President Tinubu congratulates by-election winners, commends INEC for smooth process.
Three-year manhunt ends as NDLEA nabbed notorious 36-year-old drug kingpin in Delta State.
Nigeria Maritime Domain secured as Navy records 5 years without piracy.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on correctional service reforms plus harnessing technology for national development.
The Nigerian Correctional Service has long faced critical challenges right from the Nigerian prisons era. Overcrowding and inadequate facilities down to allegations of corruption and abuse are only some of the issues.
That's true, Ademola, but it is also important to note that there have been sustained efforts at reform. In fact, an independent investigative panel headed by Dr. Magdalene Ajani, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Interior, just concluded its third and final public hearing on the state of the correctional service.
You're right, Jumai. The panel has been examining issues ranging from decongestion and humanization to capacity building and stronger collaboration with stakeholders.
Now, behind bars, a nation's conscience is tested. And as the panel's report is awaited, the big question is, can Nigeria truly transform its correctional system from punitive model to one that rehabilitates and reintegrates?
Well, that's the heart of our discussion this morning. We'll be looking at the push for reform, the recommendations from the panel, and the potential pathways to justice that serve both society and individual. I am Ademola Adeoye, and it's a pleasure to have you join us on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
The first for the week, and later in part two, we are shifting gears to technology and national development. What does the future of learning and performance look like? How can technology be harnessed to drive transformation across sectors? We'll be finding out. I am Jumai Yusuf, and we're live on the network service of the NTA. Chukuli Okoli Waja will be joining us shortly for the newspaper review.
But first, let's catch the morning headline news with Stella Namete, who is standing by. Good morning, Stella. How are you today?
Good morning, Stella.
I'm doing great. Good to see you too this morning. Welcome to the morning news. The by-election for Kuratu State constituency, contested by 6 political parties in Kogi State, has produced Musa Hassan Yakubu of the All Progressives Congress APC as winner with 55,078 votes, as announced by the returning officer. The All Progressives Grand Alliance APGA candidate for the Onitsha North Constituency 1, Mimi Ifeoma Azikiwe, has emerged winner of the by-election held on Saturday, the 16th of August. She beat her African Democratic Congress ADC opponent to clinch the vacant position. Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu congratulates all the winners of Saturday, August 16 by-election in 16 constituencies across 12 states. The president commends the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for the each free elections, mostly devoid of violence. Following the results declared by INEC, The All Progressives Congress, APC, won in 12 constituencies. The All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, won in 2. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, won in 1. And the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, won in 1 as well. President Tinubu congratulates the new APC National Chairman, Professor Nentawe Yilwata, for the emphatic first victory recorded under his leadership. 3 years after launching a manhunt for him over drug trafficking offenses, a 36-year-old notorious drug kingpin has been arrested by operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, in Asaba, Delta State. The suspect was caught while attempting to move 250 blocks of skunk in his distribution bus. The suspect came under searchlight in connection with the seizure of 24.137 kilograms of skunk and 10 grams of molly, but thereafter went underground. However, following credible intelligence, NDLEA operatives in Delta State were able to arrest him along with one of his aides while they were trying to move 250 parcels of skunk for distribution. No fewer than 6 suspects were arrested when NDLEA operatives, supported by the military and vigilantes, raided 3 cannabis farms in Enugu State, where a total of 37,500 kilograms of skunk were destroyed on 15 hectares of farmland. Meanwhile, 20,700 pills of tramadol and cocodamol were seized from a suspect by NDLEA officers on patrol along Nsukka Road. In Lagos, a 52-year-old woman was arrested with her son by NDLEA operatives in Mushin for storing and distributing 298 blocks of Ghana loud, while another suspect was nabbed in the Ajah area of Lekki, where 8.5 kilograms of Canadian loud, a strain of cannabis, was recovered from their apartment. Not less than 128,000 capsules of tramadol were recovered from a suspect was arrested by NDLEA officers at Juro, Jato, Gombe State, while a total of 337,800 capsules of the same pharmaceutical opioid were seized by operatives on patrol along the Okene-Lokoja Highway, Kogi State, from the drivers of a commercial bus coming from Onitsha, Anambra State, and heading to Kotongora, Niger State. And at the Port Harcourt Ports Complex on Nair, River State, a total of 875,000 bottles of codeine-based syrup worth 6.1 billion naira in street value and 3,500,000 pills of tramadol benzoyl valued at 1.7 billion naira were recovered from 5 containers under NDLEA intelligence tracking and watch list during joint examination with Customs Service and other security at the West Africa Container Terminal of the port. The Nigerian Maritime Domain has recorded a significant feat with a 0 case of piracy in the past 5 years. Chief of Naval Staff Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala was speaking at the passing out parade of the Nigerian Navy Military School, Ikotuntu, in Akwa Ibom State. A total of 62 young sailors made the list of graduates at the 2025 graduation ceremony.
Good grounding for them to fulfill their future careers. And like you see from the performance in the WAEC and SchoolSats, they all cleared their papers. I mean, they had an excellent result. So that tells you that when you combine discipline with study, you can achieve.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has returned to Nigeria from a short vacation, which he attended the 6th World Conference of Speakers of Parliaments, organized by the Interparliamentary Union in Geneva. Speaking on arrival at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in Abuja Monday morning, Akpabio assures Nigerians of robust legislative engagements with the executive and other stakeholders for the well-being of the country.
There were lots and lots of rumors. Where is the Senate President? So I said, Oh, I thought people didn't love me. so I had thousands of calls from everywhere. And I kept saying, I'm okay, I'm okay. And they said, are you sure? Are you sure? One particular emir, I won't mention his name, His Royal Majesty. He said, okay, if you're okay, put it on video. No video. He said, put it on video. Let me see your face. So I did, and we started laughing. He said, okay, I'm satisfied. so I thank you so much. And I'm happy to be back. And of course, Mr. President has gone on diplomatic shuttles to try to bring more dividends of democracy to Nigeria. So it's important that I stay at home with the Vice President.
And those are the highlights of the news at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly with Ademola and Jumai after this commercial break. Please.
TerraCube is available in beef, chicken, jollof and crayfish flavors in 50 cubes Saver Pack and 100 cubes Super Saver Pack.
TerraCube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
Give more strength to your hair with Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener. It's infused with nourishing oils and conditioning proteins so you can say goodbye to hair breakage. Wow! Mega Growth Leave-In Strengthener.
What food do you need?
Guys, food is ready.
Cook to impress.
No buy am. But why? No see say this big bull bag of rice no get the new big bull holographic seal. Not true.
Introducing the Big Bull Holographic Seal Tape, your favorite authentic Big Bull rice, 50 kg and 25 kg. Now with holographic seal tape. This is to ensure you get the premium product from Big Bull rice. Do not buy if the holographic seal tape is not on the bag or is broken. Big Bull rice. Tasty rice nourished you.
Imagine lovely meals you can cook with these ingredients. You spend heavily, but no guarantee of a tasty meal. Not making a right choice of seasoning cube can ruin your meal, money, and confidence. For a tasty meal, do not compromise. Choose Gold.
Use Terra Gold for the rich, consistent taste your loved ones crave for. Good for soups, stews, and jollof. Terra Gold. 1 cube, endless possibilities.
Little body, big moves. Little brain, big learning. Your little child is eager to do big things. Every sachet comes with the nutrients they need every day. Made from natural grains, contains protein and fortified with iron to support their physical growth, learning, and development. So you can fully enjoy your little one's big moments of growth.
Good, tasty food is worth living for. Worried about your oil every time you enjoy your favorite meal? Introducing Smart Balance. Smart Balance rice bran oil is rich in gamma-oryzanol. Several studies suggest that gamma-oryzanol may contribute to the reduction of bad cholesterol. Golden Terra Smart Balance Oil. Good food, no worries.
Peak Mini Bag.
fits your pocket, contains the right nourishment you need for your breakfast, creamy and tasty in your meal.
This Pick Mini is just my perfect size, filled with the right nutrients, just for me.
This Pick Mini dey sweet my belly. Who fit believe say me sef fit do shakara with better enjoyment?
Enjoyment. Now this kind of breakfast I want the top now.
Enjoy the Peak Mini Pack. Breakfast for you.
Peak. Reach for your peak. The world needs moms. With a splash of Golden Terra Oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Change no thanks into yes please. Resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty family meals is all that matters. Where there are moms, there is love. Golden Terra Oil, pour pure love.
Oh, thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria, other network service of the NTA. It's now time for newspaper review. Stay with us.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukudi Okolu Baja, is seated here in the studio. Chukudi, beautiful morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Always good to look at you.
Thank you.
Have I told you she's an epitome of humility? I need to educate you in these matters.
No.
Demo, how was the weekend?
Awesome.
Don't mind this parrot.
He's still in the weekend. You can see how relaxed he is. Okay, let's quickly go to the papers. I'll begin with the Business Nigeria, and above the masthead we have Lagos ranked world most congested city. Find the details on page 2. Tinubu names Agbaje as PEMCOM chairman. You find the details on page 6. NIRA 2025 sparks investors rush into Nigerian insurance. Details on page 2. And the headlines: Nigerians grapple with expensive loans as defaults soar. That's coming from a survey. And Nigeria questions sharp inflation drop amid soaring living cost. That's Nigerians questioning the sharp inflation drop amid soaring living cost. And Naira slips to 1,560 Naira to dollar as dollar scarcity contractor payouts feel pressure. And at the bottom plate of the Business Nigeria, Unity Providus merger sparks concerns over capital integrity and asset declaration. Now let's quickly go to the Daily Times newspaper. Below the masthead, Nigeria needs 22% of annual growth to achieve $1 trillion economy by 2030. That's coming from Nuremberger. You find the details on page 12. And by elections, mockery of democracy rehearsals for 2025 attributed to the Labour Party. And Shatima mourns Emir of Zuru. You find the details on page 6. Tinubu appoints Opeyemi Agbaje, PEMCOM chairman, as pension assets hits 24 trillion naira. Private sector credit falls by 1.69 trillion naira to 76.14 trillion naira in June 2025. Details on page 2. Rice production, farmers blame high price on cartel middlemen. Details on page 7. And APGA wins senatorial seat in Anambra by election. You find all the details on page 9. Mr. Demola?
Okay, I have this Nigeria newspaper with me, and just beside that nameplate, we have Nigeria joins $6.5 million international push for Lassa fever vaccine. Details can be found on page 7. 4 trillion power bailout. CSOs demand transparency. SMEs, households lament poor services by Disco amid high tariffs. Details can be found on page 4. And cybercrime, Nigeria deports 42 foreign convicts. 150 more await exit. Details on page 4. NITCOM rescued Nigerian workers alleged sexual abuse by Chinese employers in Central Africa Republic. Details of that story can be found on page 7. By-elections, APC sweeps 12 out of 16 seats. ABGA consolidates in Anambra. PDP clings to Oyo. NNPP clinches Kano. Page 2 is where you can find the details. Chooks.
Thank you, Demo. The 4 trillion naira bailout, the presidency has approved for debt financing, which is obviously going to make Genco smile, is one that we should call laudable. But the booby traps would always be there. It's not money you release in one fell swoop, that's for sure. So we're going to have to explore, we have to trace, we have to monitor whether it's coming in tranches as promised and all that. It's very important that it is a seamless thing. No, it's not an accusation, but I feel that journalism in this country has become a one fell swoop thing. We have to learn to take the story and to trail it thereafter. That is the way you hold people accountable. So Mr. President's good intentions have to be monitored to ensure that eventually it all percolates into steady power for, the generality of Nigerians. It's a very commendable one. Farmers are blaming cartels of high prices of rice, and all that. Yeah. Sometimes you begin to ask whether we don't show an innate ability to swindle and to be fraudulent. Sometimes people will tell you that those who are complaining that some people are thieving in Abuja is that they don't have a representative looter in Abuja. Once they get one, they keep quiet.
Exactly.
How can we go to heaven then if we need to? When I talk about
that's if they believe there's heaven.
Exactly. No, but they have to believe. Okay, fine. If they want God, it will be necessary to create him. And that's one of the French philosophers.
Yes.
Because it gives you peace of mind to think of the hereinafter. It's very important.
That somebody is monitoring your activities.
Exactly. Otherwise, you will become a loose cannon, doing whatever you like. There are ways of imposing discipline on yourself. How do you think? Let's not go into that. Okay? By-elections, mockery of democracy, that's ABGA speaking there. Then people are saying it's a window on what is going to happen in 2027. The good news for the APC is that across the nation, where the by-elections held, 12 out of 16 seats were garnered by them. I am not against people complaining about things that didn't go well. Show me proof of how we should get that thing, redone or retouched, if for nothing else, for the future to get better.
Yes.
Give me proof, that's all. The whining I hear from politicians on and on that does not quite mean much to me as a person. Give us proof so that Africa will get better. Because many of the things we talk about in Nigeria are actually African things. It's not different in Tanzania. It's not different in Congo.
Congo, it's the same.
It's an African thing, and it's in our attitude.
Is it a black man thing?
It's a black man thing, but I don't agree with my friend who loquaciously announced that the black man's brain is half damaged. I nearly fought him that day. I didn't know he was actually talking about me. There was money he sent. It belonged to me, and we were sharing the same account. And I was taking money from it because I had a mandate to take not more than 500K. So he was actually talking about me. I didn't even know. Don't tell me. I had justification for taking the money. If my salaries were not coming, for crying out loud, my children had to stay in school.
Okay, let's talk about pensions now. President Tinubu has appointed Opeyemi Agbaje as PENCOM chairman as pension assets hits 24 trillion naira. That's good news for pensioners.
Good news for pension and pensioners.
Yes.
The journalists will always go to where the water is half, the glass is half empty of water. Does this also translate into assurance that the money is intact and would go to the pensioners when they need it? I'm sorry, that's how we are trained to think as journalists. Yeah, there's this pamphlet, it's called The Mind of Mr. J.G. Reader. They asked him, how do you catch thieves? I think like them, that's how I get them. So we would always warn about what could endanger the good news you just read about. Let's make sure that these things are kept in the holiest of places so that it goes to the people when they need it. Very important.
And we mourn the Emir of Zulu like yesterday.
I don't quite think that Africa is still fighting tribal wars in modern ways, but it's something close to that. Because it diminishes the traditional stool of Africa, which I cherish as a person.
Yes.
I'm a traditionalist to a very great extent. You might poo-poo and laugh at certain things Africa does, but some of the things that make life livable are because they are done the African way. The typical American boy takes a rifle and starts shooting people. He goes amok because he's left to cater, for himself quite early in life. But here in Africa, people are kept in your household till
married with children,
even when they are 36. It is stupid economically, but it helps Africa retain some level of sanity.
Yes.
How?
The people are not cast out there where they can now begin to expose themselves to a lot of...
Is that not why they are lazy?
I don't know whether LAZY is the issue. Okay, if somebody gets out of university now for 6 years, he can't get a job. The first pair of shoes he bought, he changes them after 3 years.
The thing there is this.
Don't you think that...
But there are people who after graduation...
The thing there is, over there, in other climes, even you're going to the university is by yourself. So you begin to think right from the age of 16 or 18 outside the box, how you're going to fend for yourself. You begin to be more creative and innovative. How do you get resources to fund your living? Because you know that your parents...
I agree.
At 18,
they are keying into a culture that has been set. But then they also got opportunity to lay out a livelihood that is encouraged into the axis you're talking about.
But let's take a step back.
Yes.
During days when we were growing up.
Yes.
Why were we doing temporary jobs then?
Fine, we were doing temporary jobs.
Why were we doing it? It gave us a sense of independence.
Yes.
We'll just go back to school. My father doesn't even know. He'll come home and now find us at home.
Yes.
It made us independent. But how can you keep a 30-something-year-old man?
You are
who has a girlfriend that he goes to meet, goes to parties, but he doesn't know how to look for money to feed himself.
You're pushing it to the region of stupidity. You're sounding like Hannah to Akilu, the daughter of the Sardaunas, the secretary to the Sardauna.
Yes.
I interviewed her, and she said, one of the problems we have is that we now have a generation of people who feel entitled.
Thank you.
Those are the people you're
talking about. And we're enablers. We that worked doing temporary jobs have these children now.
This psychology class has to end. I hear our time is up.
Yeah, Chooks, don't feel that you are entitled to more time. So your time is off.
You're encouraging me to be talkative.
Mr. Chooks, thank you so much.
Bless you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a break now. The conversation will kickstart when we come back. Stay with us.
Guys, food is ready.
Suitable for jollof rice, stew, spaghetti, and yam portage. Cooked to impress.
Imagine lovely meals you can cook with these ingredients. You spend heavily, but no guarantee of a tasty meal. Not making a right choice of seasoning cube can ruin your meal, money, and confidence. For a tasty meal, do not compromise. Choose Gold.
Use Terra Gold for the rich, consistent taste your loved ones crave for. Good for soups, stews, and jollof. Terra Gold. 1 cube, endless possibilities.
Confidence is important in life's little moments. Strong teeth can help, even if they get her into trouble sometimes. A great smile is useful to break the ice, and making friends is easier when you know you have fresh breath. I give my family confidence with Pepsodent Triple Protection 123. Its antibacterial action formula gives them cavity protection, white teeth, and fresh breath. The confidence of 3 toothpaste in 1. Pepsodent Triple Protection 123.
TerraCube is available in beef, chicken, jollof and crayfish flavors in 50 cubes Saver Pack and 100 cubes Super Saver Pack.
TerraCube. Unwrap joy. Unleash taste.
Good, tasty food is worth living for. Worried about your oil every time you enjoy your favorite meal? Introducing Smart Balance. Smart Balance rice bran oil is rich in gamma oryzanol. Several studies suggest that gamma oryzanol may contribute to the reduction of bad cholesterol. Golden Terra Smart Balance oil. Good food, no worries.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and as we're going into our conversation to discuss the issue transformation of the correctional service, let's take this background report by Ibrahim Danghamidu.
Nigeria's correctional system sits at the very heart of justice, rehabilitation and national security. For years, the Nigerian Correctional Service has borne the dual challenge of keeping society safe while also reforming offenders into productive citizens. But recent controversies, including the widely questioned jail term of socialite Idris Okuneye, popularly known as Bobrisky, brought to the forefront allegations of corruption, selective justice, and abuse within the system. These public concerns, coupled with long-standing issues of overcrowding, inhumane treatment, and poor rehabilitation structures, prompted the Minister of Interior to establish the Independent Investigative Panel on alleged corruption, abuse of power, torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment against the Nigerian Correctional Service. Headed by Dr. Magdalene Ajani, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Interior, the panel held 3 public sittings where victims, officials, and civil society groups presented testimonies. The hearings revealed disturbing patterns, from claims of extortion and torture to the widespread neglect of inmates' welfare. At the same time, they also shed light on the resilience of correctional officers who continue to serve in extremely difficult conditions. The panel's recommendations are expected to shape the next phase of reforms. With new legislation, increased federal support, and strategic innovations already underway, correctional facilities are gradually shifting from being seen merely as prisons to becoming true centers of reformation. The introduction of skills acquisitions programs, expanded educational opportunities, and stronger emphasis on psychological support are part of this evolving vision. Yet, challenges persist. Overcrowding, slow judicial processes, and resource constraints continue to weigh heavily on Nigeria's correctional centers, which currently hold over 81,000 inmates, about 65% of whom are still awaiting trial. This reality underscores the need for reforms that extend beyond infrastructure to speedy justice delivery, public-private partnerships, and modern security technology. Globally, correctional services are no longer about walls and bars, but about rehabilitation, reintegration, and community safety. Nigeria's reform path must therefore keep pace with these standards, while also reflecting our unique social and economic realities. Today, on Good Morning Nigeria, stakeholders in the Correctional Service will lead the discussion on the panel's findings and the next steps in deepening correctional service reforms, not only to strengthen security, but also to ensure that correctional centers truly become places of hope, transformation, and national renewal.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim there. Now joining us to begin our conversation on the correctional service reforms, let me first introduce Dr. Magdalene Ajani. She is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Interior, and Chairman, Independent Investigative Panel on Alleged Corruption, Abuse of Power, Torture, Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment against the Nigerian Correctional Service. Dr. Ajani, it's good to have you again in our studio.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right, you're welcome. Also joining us here is Dr. Uju Agomo. She's the Secretary, Independent Investigative Panel on Alleged Corruption, Abuse of Power, Torture, Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment against the Nigerian Correctional Service. She's also the Executive Director of Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, PROWA, a member United Nations Subcommittee on Prevention of Torture, Executive Committee member, West African Regional Coordinator, African Security Sector Network. Madam, glad to have you again joining us for this conversation.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning, Nigeria.
It's great to have you join us. And we have Dr. Ike Ezeogu, who is a member of the panel. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all.
And we also have Francis Enobere. He's the former National Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Correctional Service. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank
you.
So let's kickstart our conversation now with the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Ajani. Dr. Ajani, having, listened to weeks, months of, testimonies, reviews, what would you say are the most striking, revelations or challenges that, the panel was able to discover?
Very interesting story. Watching the men and the women of the Nigerian Correctional Service render service in very challenging situations, extremely challenging situations. And the prisons in Nigeria are quite old, most of them over 30 years that they were built. And of course, maintenance is an issue now. And funding is a huge one. So within those circumstances, the men and the women of the Correctional Service are putting in their best.
Okay.
But it brings out the fact that as a government, we need to be a little bit more deliberate in what we do in supporting the Correctional Service to be able to render services to Nigerians in their custody and also have their welfare taken care of.
When you say a little bit more deliberate, can you further expatiate on that?
We need to fund, equip, tool, retool the officers in the Nigerian Correctional Service. It's something that Nigeria needs to take very, very seriously.
Okay.
Because if we want to address security and crime in the nation, then the Correctional Service should be put in the right position that it should be. because they are part of the component of justice in Nigeria, and we need to prioritize it.
We need to prioritize it. Let's bring him, Dr. Uju, into this conversation now. You're part of the UN, and you've gone around prisons. You've been part of the panel, listening to people talking about their plights in the Nigerian correctional service. How did you feel listening to their stories? Compared to other countries where reforms have worked, how do you feel?
I wasn't surprised because it was things I knew before. But what came out very vividly is that the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 have actually taken care of almost all the issues. But the inability to enable the implementation of that act well is the shocking part. Because there is absolutely no issue that the panel discussed. There's absolutely no challenges that the correctional service brought to our knowledge, including the various stakeholders, that you didn't see specific provisions of that act framed with the full intendment to address. But the question is, how are we then doing it? So it's one thing to make wonderful laws, transformative laws, but it's also another thing to have both the political will and enablement to resource it, both in terms of capacity, in terms of mechanisms to make it happen, and in terms of funds to make it happen. That was clear.
So in other words, it's the implementation that is the major bone of contention now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Ike, you're also part of the panel. Tell us your observation.
Yeah, it's not different from what my colleagues in the panel observed. Two principal things. One is funding, then the second one is operationalization. Because everything doesn't start and end with funding, but funding is a critical part of the challenge. And then we need to also look at the attitude of the workers, which will bring about training, retraining to reposition them to function better. But all of that boils down to funding.
Okay.
Because one, welfare for the officers is also a major issue. And when you have officers that are not properly motivated, it will also be difficult to get the best out of them.
Okay.
So it's about funding.
I'm not saying it's only about funding.
Okay.
Funding is a critical part of the issue.
Because Dr. Uju has mentioned implementation itself.
Yeah, but you need money to implement.
Yeah, you need money to
You also need money to, and you need other things, not just only money, as the point he's making.
Yeah, and she also mentioned the Correctional Service Act of 2019, which sort of changed the philosophy and operations of correctional services in Nigeria. So let me bring in Francis Enobere into this conversation now. What does this act provide for?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just like Dr. Uju mentioned, there is hardly any part of the challenges that the correctional service is passing through today that the act has not covered. To be specific, you heard during the discussion sessions issues surrounding training of inmates, that is reformation, rehabilitation, and reintegration, is captured there in the act, but you don't do some of these things with obsolete equipment. You also had the issue of conveying inmates to court as and when due. You need funding to, and it's captured in the act, how inmates are supposed to be conveyed to court in a motorized manner to address the issue of insecurity and timely presentation of these inmates in court. It's captured in the act. If you talk about the issue of overcrowding, it's also captured in the act. If you look at section 12 there, 12(2)(c), it talks specifically about the fate of those that have been condemned to death and have spent 10 years after having exhausted their windows of opportunity to what the chief judge should do is there in the act. Overcrowded, when a particular custodial center is overshooting its capacity, what the controller should do is there in the act. If you talk about female, they need to separate them, create different custodial centers to house them instead of the ones we have now, where we have wings of female inmates in a larger custodial center. Is there in the act. Go to section 34. It spells out how these issues should be handled. If you talk about the non-custodial implementation of non-custodial measures designed to reduce the overcrowding that has become a harder problem, is there in the act. But most of these things have not been implemented. And to be again, the act. If you look at the objective of the act, it spells out 4 basic things. Number 1, to ensure international best practices. Number 2, to promote the implementation of non-custodial measures. Then the third one is to promote rehabilitation, reformation, and reintegration. And then the last one is to ensure a structural framework to address the issue of pre-trial detainees.
Okay.
Is there in the act?
I like the fact that you mentioned non-custodial measures such as parole, probation, and community service. So how widely, I'm bringing in Dr. Ajani into this conversation now, how widely are these being implemented? Because we know in other climes, parole, you have a parole officer that monitors what you do. The parole, usually you have a job when you come out, and it's being monitored also. So how is the implementation going to be like in Nigeria? Are we well equipped to do that? Dr. Ajani?
No. That's the...
But it's part of the act, provision of the
That's
act.
a straight answer to, are we well equipped to do that? We are not well equipped to do that. But like I said, within the challenges and the conditions that the correctional service works, they still render some degree of service, which is not exactly what it should be. And these are the things that the lack of implementation of the acts should be speaking to. And hopefully the reforms will be targeted and to ensure that those things are implemented appropriately. But policies, reforms, acts do not turn out to be actionable without the necessary tools, which have to do with training and with funding. So when I use the word deliberate, it is something that Nigeria has to deliberately deal with.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ajani. Let's now begin to look at some of the issues that came up, during the sitting of the panel. For instance, the issue of corruption and abuse of power. Well, at the early sitting of the panel, the issue of this Bobrisky came up, and so many other issues came up. So now, tell us, how widespread did the panel, find these issues to be? What can you tell us, Dr. Guma?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure you know that the panel, in addition to receiving complaints, in addition to having public sittings, also visited places of detention across the country.
Yeah.
And basically what was seen, and which had also been flagged, is that when you do not resource the correctional centers adequately, you find out that you are opening the door for illegal things to happen for it to sustain. So if you don't provide for enough funds to have vehicles, enough funds to fuel vehicles, inmates may be asked to get those monies. Inmates may be finding a way to fund the spaces they have to stay in terms of the nature of those spaces.
Okay.
Of course, you knew about the issue of overcrowding. So one of the key things we saw was, and by the way, let me repeat it because it looked like a lot of Nigerians did not believe the first report. You remember that the first report indicated that from all of the facts before us, that Bobrisky actually stayed inside the correctional centers. In short, a lot of people, there's some people that sent me a message as said, if you were not in this panel, I would have said they bribed you to write this. Of course you may. There's no way we would have seen something else and said something else. But I will tell you specifically, the cell where he was, if I did not see it with my eyes, I would never have believed it was inside a custodial center. So privileges. So the question of the privileges, what happens in terms of privileges, whether these privileges and how people can access it, what are the things that make prone corruption, and how do you then ensure there is oversight to address those issues of corruption, the issues that the panel looked very closely into. The panel also decided to look at certain things that are supposed to make the facilities much, much easier. And I give you some few examples. Now, if you look at the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019, it recognizes the fact that you need to create enough work space for the inmates, and they need to have incentives for doing that. You remember the common saying that an idle man is a devil's workshop. So the 2019 Act says that profits from enterprises in custodial centers, be them vocational workshops or farm centers, should be divided into three. Before 2019 Act, it was a different practice. All the resources were sent straight to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, and that was final. But because that wasn't an incentive, the Act says let a proportion be put for the inmates that were part of this as part of their reformation and reintegration package, and then a proportion,
kind of an incentive,
and a proportion for the, like a revolving fund for that enterprise, and of course the third part to the federal government. So you find out that when this is not happening, you find out that the inmates will not be motivated to be creating, to be in those work areas. And when this is happening, it means that inmates will begin to do other things to get money. So the whole notion of commercialization of the time and activities and all sorts of things happening. So basically what the panel began to see is that all of these things needs to happen. You need to be able to provide the proper resourcing and to be able to ensure that those workshops happen. There was a time where there was a specific policy, I think it's right sizing and downsizing, that took out a lot of the people who were working in those workshops. So many of those workshops don't have the kind of personnel that's supposed to train off.
So no capable hands too.
Yeah, because those ones were not the ones, they removed many of them. So we need to have a system, and which is part of the what PAN is looking at. What are the things that can help address these issues? What are the things that can help deal with the cost implications? So in issues around female, he mentioned in section 34, we made provisions as to how to ensure that the problems they address. Issues relating to young offenders, section 35, we also looked at what can be done, issues about rehabilitation, and all through mentally ill persons, section 24, all of that. And I think that this was basically what is the key, and the need to have some form of oversight. Because no matter what you do, if you don't encourage a mechanism of internal and external oversight, you have a problem. And one of the things I believe Nigerians should celebrate is what the Minister of Interior is doing through this process of establishing this panel.
So what are those things then?
Clearly, what the minister have just done was to say, I am bringing my agency under me, under scrutiny. Let us see to what extent this agency is complying with that thing you see in the objective of the Act, which is section 2 sub 1A, which talks about complying with international best practices and good correctional practices. So now doing this and not interfering in any way, ensuring that people can bring complaints, ensuring that we can visit. Do you know when we visit custodial center, they don't know when we're coming. And we have vivid videos and pictures about everything. And then making sure that people are speaking to it.
When they don't know when you're coming, how do you have easy access to this?
We had complete cooperation and cooperation from the Controller General of Corrections and his team. They gave us access to everywhere we wanted. The interviews we had privately with inmates, even every information we're asking them, we needed, they brought. They also brought the relevant departments and staff to all of our sessions. So if all the other ministries are doing something like that, maybe we will not be where we are. So again, if every agency needs to position itself to scrutiny, ensuring that both internal and external as well as independent oversight mechanisms are put in place. That is how we can checkmate some of the ills in the society.
Indeed, that is how we can checkmate some of the ills in the society. And recently, Dr. Ike, the government recently released thousands of inmates. So just to decongest, the facilities. Beyond periodic releases, what sustainable measures are being put in place? Because we've seen countries like Norway and the Netherlands reduce prison congestion towards non-custodial, sentences. So how can Nigeria, adopt or begin to adopt these approaches?
Okay, just like Dr. Uju said, everything is provided in the Act. And I believe the release you're talking about is the one that the Honorable Minister paid fines for inmates across the country. Yes. That's one aspect, but that is not even the sustainable part of it. The sustainable part of it is there are certain visitations that the judiciary, the chief judge, the magistrates, and all of them supposed to be doing periodically to the correctional service, and then that is one of it. And then it's completely provided in the Act.
Okay, completely provided in the Act. And so if some people say it's 5 years too long to be talking about it now, because we've talked about implementation since 2019 when the Act came into place. Still, we are still talking about reforms in the prison. Why is that?
Okay, even though the Act was 2019, there are still some part of the Act that we are still not getting sufficient from what we found cooperation from the judiciary. For example, the Act provides that when the correctional facility is getting overcrowded, the in charge should be able to raise concerns about that, write to the controller, and controller will write to the various agencies or institutions that are involved in this, including the judiciary, and then they should be able to take action within a certain period. If that action is not taken, they can reject inmates. But we found in some places, for what we discovered in the visit, that even some of the judges, when they write, the judges say they don't know about it. When they reject inmates, the judges try to use all their political and then powers to force them to take those inmates. So which part of what we're looking at also is how to get interagency collaboration, get the agencies to understand this, the judiciary particularly to understand this part of the provisions and help in implementing. And correctional service does not operate in isolation. So nobody gets into correctional service without coming through the court. And without the cooperation of the court, I am not sure we will also get to successfully decongest.
Were there representatives from the judiciary as part of your panel?
Yes, we have some in the first and second public hearing, but in this one we have NBA, we have Lacon, and then Spido. And Nigerian Bar Association.
All right, Dr. Ike, thank you so much for that. Let's come to Mr. Francis now. You've been the public relations officer at the Correctional Service. You were. All right, so you should be very familiar when we talk about the welfare and the working conditions of the correctional officers and how, it affects, their performance. And also, when you tell us that, also I want us to look at the issue of infrastructure now, the gaps in infrastructure. How does it affect, the performance of, the inmates and also the officers there?
Yes, talking about welfare of the personnel and their working environment, what they have to work with to deliver on the mandate. I just tell you straight away that it's nothing to write home about. To start with, except recently that through the Honorable Minister of Interior, there are moves now to increase the staffing. Before now, you find a situation where some of the personnel do 24 hours at a stretch due to inadequate personnel. Okay. And that, of course, what, to lead to work burned out, the efficiency will drop, the dedication will also drop, the material they have to work with to start with. Those in the workshop you have heard, there are obsolete equipment there, apart from the fact that the tradesmen are not even there. The hazard, are you talking about the barrack accommodation that should, at least if you leave your house in the morning you are going to work, at least you should be sure that your family is kept in a safe and clean and decent environment. Go around the barracks. They are nothing to write them about. And even the offices, if you go outside the shores of these countries or some other clients that want to emulate, you go to their custodial facilities. Most of these things that we are manually handling, they've been digitized, and the logs and everything, you can sit in one place. You are able to preview a large expanse of area where you are working without necessarily living where you are. You are able to tell what is happening in different bits. We don't have such around. And the surprising aspect of it is that some of these equipment, they are so little that it doesn't take rocket science to get them, installed. We have been stuck with this pittance, if I may use that language, of in terms of allocation to the service, because it's what you have, you work with. So we need to again celebrate, just like Dr. Yu said, celebrate the Honorable Minister of Interior. Yes, the challenges are huge, but what he has succeeded in doing with this exposure is to bring in different components of the society. Let people see areas they can be of help. The NME was there, the Nigeria Bar Association was there, the Nigerian Medical Association, they were there, and so many other components of society that participated. They will see areas they can come in to assist so that the burden on the federal government will be reduced. Because there's this saying that if a hunter shoots an animal that looks like a pan kernel, he faces the challenge of how to butcher it. Okay, you have this huge number of offenders in your custody. What next? Because every inmate has a date with the society. So if you don't capacitate the institution that is designed to take care of them to the extent that they are able to remodify their character and return them to society better citizens, then you will be cutting a set of human beings. You assemble in a place, you teach them higher forms of criminality, and then bring them back to society more venomous.
Bring them back to society more venomous. Now, despite reforms, Dr. Ajani, reports still, like you mentioned, highlights, overcrowding, malnutrition, and inadequate healthcare in correctional centers, where we bring people, our offenders, some are armed robbers, some just stole a chicken. And it's been there for the past 10 years because going to court is now an issue. So what was your assessment on ground when you went around these prisons? What was your assessment, and what did you take back to the panel for discussion on the table?
The assessments are this. More than 70% of inmates first are state offenders and are waiting trials. We just mentioned somebody stole chicken and is in custody for 10 years. Should that really be the right place for that person to be in? No. We have the non-custodial measures that should handle minor cases like that. But is the judges using that? No. everybody is taken to the cell, and dates of going to courts are just endlessly postponed. Within the Act, there should be a system where the state judges go periodically to the cells to at least look at such cases and get them out. But this is not an active process in most of the states. Delta, maybe, is it Anambra or Enugu? Those ones tend to like do it every quarter. But most times, even when the attention of the judges are drawn to the fact that there are non-custodial measures, it looks like we still have a lot of stakeholders' engagement and sensitization to do. Because this is an act of parliament. So if anything, I expect the judges to know better than what we're experiencing. And when the custodian and the correctional officers try to bring this to their attention, even in courts, they are at the risk of being arrested. So
The
yes,
custodial
the correctional officers.
Contempt of court.
Yes, for contempt of court. So when, I mean, there are things that shouldn't just happen. 5 years after the existence of an act, people who should know are claiming that they do not know. This came up, we engaged the Judiciary Institute and the council about it and the need for them to do more sensitization of their judges. Because if they do this and the state governors take responsibility for the state offenders, then in the first place we should not be talking about congestion of the prisons, because more than 70% of people who are there should really not be there. Should really not be there. And so that will now give the judges and the correctional service officers better time to manage the few who are there because they have to be there.
Dr. Ajani, I still want to stay with you before I come to Dr. Oguma here. Do you think the community-based initiative can also assist, in supporting the offenders?
Okay, I think I need to understand you better. What do you mean by that?
When I talk about community, I'm talking about the society now. Do you think the initiative can contribute to supporting the welfare of the offenders?
Oh, definitely. Let's take the health aspects, okay? Most of the correctional centers have clinics, but we don't have enough medical or health workers to attend to them.
Yeah.
Realize that these people are in a confined space. They have been sent to a place where they do not know what day and time they are going to come out or get justice. So psychologically, they are down. So for psychologists, therapists to come in to work with these people is something that could be of great help.
Okay.
Even medications, we don't have enough. So pharmaceutical companies coming in to support with drugs as a form of CSR would definitely help. The Lagon, FIDA, the rest of them, there are quite a number of inmates who do not have access to lawyers. So the society coming in to participate in some of this will definitely boost the morale of both the staff and the inmates.
Okay.
And then they get the support for somebody who will speak for them or even assist in their health care. You have a lot of them with scabies. Drugs for scabies are things that can be provided so freely by pharmaceutical companies. But are these being done? No. No. Just trickles from faith-based organizations.
Are these part of your recommendations?
They will be part of our recommendations because at the 3 public hearings that we've heard, particularly the last one that had to do with thermal extensions,
Okay.
we had different groups represented, and these were presented to them, and quite a number of people actually got their eyes open. Like the first vice president of the Nigerian Medical Association that was in attendance, hearing that the inmates do not even have adequate pad, sanitary pad for the ladies. At the end of the session that day, he called a friend who has a company who has promised to provide pads to inmates every month. So we have people coming in gradually, haven't seen what is going on in the prison, because the truth is that a lot of Nigerians do not even know what the correctional service staff and the inmates are going through. So we've had some promises coming in, and the fact that they will work with us going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Pamsek. Okay, Dr. Oguma.
We have to remind our viewers to send in their text messages and questions to our guests seated here in the studio. If you have any, please send them. Make it short and simple, please, and put your name at the end of your question to our guest in the studio. We'll be expecting your contributions as our viewers, yes.
All right. Okay. I was going to ask you, because earlier on we talked about some people that have been sentenced probably to death and all that, and the sentences have not been, executed. We know that some governors are always very afraid to say, no, I cannot sign for somebody to go and be executed and all that. In such instances, what do you think should be done? Beyond punishment, correctional facilities are meant to rehabilitate. How did the panel assess current rehabilitation programs? That is, plus the question I asked earlier.
Very, very valid question. But please do permit me to say something about non-custodial measures, because I think it is important to be said.
Very.
The whole of Part 2 of the Nigerian Correctional Service makes very copious provisions in terms of what needs to be done in terms of the implementation of non-custodial measures. Another term for it is community corrections. The same also for Section 2 Sub 1B of that same Act. From Section 37(1) of the Act, tells us the different types of non-custodial measures that the Nigerian Correctional Service is supposed to help in supervising. The issue of our community service, probation, parole, restorative justice, and any other type. Now, part of the key issue, which is aligns to the point that the chairperson who had mentioned, of the panel had mentioned, is the fact that when you don't have resources, from the information the panel has gotten, there's not been any single budgetary allocation for the implementation of non-custodial measures, for recruitment of staff to administer non-custodial supervision. So how are we going to be able to deal with that? Even though there are records that the Correctional Service sent to the panel that they have been, using designated staff and addressing. But you and I know that if they have proper resourcing and then there are adequate staff and around this, we will be able to achieve much. And once that is done, it will reduce the number of population. She mentioned, like the example that you gave about somebody stealing chicken. There's no need keeping the person there, because when you do, you're exposing the person to become a criminal or a serious criminal rather than a minor offender, despite the fact that the government will be spending money on that. Now, I'll quickly go to the issue you raised. The first issue you raised is about the issue of dealing with the death row inmates. The point, it must be said, that currently there is a United Nations moratorium on executions. Okay. And part of the reason is that we have found that many a times there are errors. So what if you have wrongly accused someone? When the person is executed, it is final. You can't say, I'm sorry. It is gone. So, and that's why in many countries, death penalty has been abolished. Now, the major point here being said is, it is good that Nigeria continues to have a moratorium or toward the line that international compliance. So, but what happens is basically two. You have a process which is called the prerogative of mercy process. Remember, the prerogative of mercy, which is a constitutional provision, speaks both in terms of the federal offenses and state offenses. So either the president or the governor will need to sign. Now, for those who are of good behavior for some reasons, you can commute somebody's death sentence into life, okay? And that is the place for that administrative process in terms of the prerogative of mercy. But the other point is that in the Act, with that Section 12(2)(c) that Francis mentioned, you find a situation that when they have exhausted the appeal, right, and we have up to 10 years. Something can then step in when the chief judge can do something about it. And at that, because they have exhausted that appeal process, so he will not be saying that he's also serving his own case. But what we found out is that managing death row inmates is very difficult. They want different meals, yeah? And if you say you won't give it, there's a lot of tension. Meanwhile, in terms of the allocation of feeding, there is no difference between their needs and any other one. And that becomes problematic. And I think there was a lot that needed to be said in terms of how then do we make sure that the kind of programming in terms of death row inmates are maintained, and that this administrative process, both in terms of prerogative of mercy and the full implementation of Section 12 sub 2C. You then also ask the issue about rehabilitation. I think it's a very important question. And rehabilitation is at the heart of everything that ought to happen in custody, irrespective of the nature of the person who is in custody. And I think many a times people need to understand that in custody, just like in all correctional centers in Nigeria, there are people who are innocent. And I think people need to know that, because sometimes they think, oh, everybody there is criminal. It's not true. There are people who are innocent. More so when you look at the proportion that have not been convicted. The records that I gave us mentioned 65. That range of 65% and sometimes 69 to 65, 69, 70% is the average for the whole country. There are custodial centers that proportion is as high as 97%, 87%, 90% of those who are in custody that have not been convicted. Tell me how the correctional service will be managing in terms of the regime for those ones. So in terms of the rehabilitation, I say some people are innocent. Some are minor offenders. Then of course some are serious offenders. Irrespective of whoever did each of this happen, you need to be able to ensure that what system that you have for them, and what the panel did includes the following. One, there is a provision that talks about giving what is called certificates of good behavior, which the board, on the advice of the Controller General, needs to present, and there are benefits for having that good behavior. The panel asked the Correctional Service to bring a list of all those who have been given or recommended for this. And if that none has happened, why has it not happened? And our intention is that we want to activate this process. The second is, you remember that point I made about the division, the funds, the issue about the funds, the profit divided into three. The panel also wants to know, correctional center by correctional center, what are the different vocational workshops and the different farm centers, facilities happening there, how many inmates are currently benefiting from that, and how many inmates have benefited from this division of profit, how many enterprises have benefited from the division of profit, and if it's not happening, why and what can be done to address it, and understanding what those gaps are. We also ask in terms of families, because in terms of rehabilitation, you require families. Think of it. In the educational sector, you know about Parent Teachers Association. Why do you have Parent Teachers Association? Because you recognize that the teachers alone cannot be the only one taking care of these so-called normal people in the educational sector. So why do we then dealing with inmates not understand the full impact of the family? So the panel asked that the Correctional Service will be able to indicate what kind of programs they have or they can plan towards this. What are the status of their visiting spaces? Do they have challenges? What are the resources they require to get the kind of program and facilities and space for family visits and to activate that element? You understand? Now, the panel also recognized that even if you talk about the division of resources, if it's 0, divide 0 by 3, it's still 0. So we need to find how to increase that money. So why is it that state governments or private sector or individuals cannot see the need to give contracts to produce things? Okay, say school uniforms, shoes, whatever it is.
Like they do in China.
Do you know in Kenya, the committee prison in Kenya provides all of the plate numbers that they use in the whole of Kenya. All. Okay? And here, you can see military boots, everything. The correctional services can get it. Private sector can even come in, look at at a way to do that partnership because there is a percentage that can be kept in the package of that percentage of the profit. Let me give you a little information. You know, in the 2019 Act, it says that money should be divided into three, the profit.
Yeah.
Remember, on the 17th of March 2023, there was this placement of correctional service now in the concurrent legislative list, which means states should begin to administer and all of that. So some states have, following the modern state correctional service law, started establishing their state correctional service laws.
Okay.
Ebonyi was the first. And few weeks ago, Abia State, the governor of Abia State, signed the Abia State Correctional Service Law. One of the things in that Abia State Correctional Service Law is that that division should be 5, not just 4, and not just 3.
Okay.
So the other 2 is that the officer who is training inmates in those workshops should have a proportion. Then the correctional center, where this is, should also have something. That way, everybody is incentivized, both the correctional service, the center, the officer, and inmates, and everyone. So rehabilitation must be comprehensive. It must deal with psychological, social, economic, and family, and also reintegration factor, you know, to be able to happen. My final word around this issue of rehabilitation is, if you look at the parole, the concept of parole, parole is the only non-custodial measures or the only community correction measures that deals with people who have served time in custody. Parole is based on saying those who have been seen to be of good behavior and they have the potential of continuing being of good behavior outside, that they should serve the rest of their sentence in the community. And there are clear process. And I keep telling people, I'd rather people come out of custodial center through the pathway of parole rather than the other, because this way you have structured method of continuing supervising even in the community. So we are hoping that by the time the report comes, that the very comprehensive focus of the panel is given in this, that if it's fully implemented.
Do we have enough personnel or technology to be able to monitor those on parole?
No, the answer is no. But part of the issue is that also in terms of parole, first, even the answer, you know, we asked about, do we have personnel for correction, non-custodial? We've already told you that there is zero budget for them. So we need to ensure that we have the adequate staff. There are some staff, but these staff are designated, so they need to really recruit more staff to make sure that this happens. And then there are also key agencies that you can partner with. Okay. I wanted to tell you one thing to maybe make Nigerians see how serious this is. In all my visits in many custodial centers, and I have, as you know, been able to do at least visit custodial centers in more than 32 countries. The places you see the kind of thing we are seeing are correctional centers that are in countries coming out of conflict. The only place I will tell you in Africa that you will see that their facility is worse than Nigeria is places like Burundi, places like Democratic Republic of Congo. There is no country that is not in war that have the kind of situation, especially when you start looking at the number of which is why we must do something seriously about this.
And in addition to all of this also, we are looking at how we can also make the correctional service more resourceful. Okay. For example, the correctional service has farm centers, cumulatively over 5,000 hectares. Okay. And if they are put to proper use, there is no way Nigeria will begin to budget for feeding correctional service. In fact, there should be production that should feed them and also sell to the public. So all of that are the things we're looking at from the panel, not just talking about the fund not available, even though that also requires fund to activate it. But if it is activated and effectively put to use, give or take in the next 3-4 years, correctional service should start to feed itself and also have enough to sell to the public.
Okay. Yeah, correctional service, you know, you talked about funds, but I need you to talk about manpower still, employment of more hands to be able to implement whatever outcome of the reform is there. So how can Nigeria, you know, strengthen restorative justice to complement correctional services there? Okay. We need people on ground. We need boots on ground.
Yes. If you follow the trend, recently the portal was opened for employment for Ministry of Interior. The services are under Ministry of Interior, and Correctional Service is one of them. And then in the panel also, part of the directives given to the correctional services that they should be able to plan their manpower and ensure that in the recruitment process, that people, the hands that they require, both in the medical and the counseling and all the other sectors, are all employed in this process.
Because I asked this question because there are a lot of graduates who read social welfare.
Yes.
Out there just wasting.
That employment is one of it, and then volunteering. We also need to begin to reactivate the mechanism of volunteering, because most countries use that and they use them well. But I think something needs to be done about also creating incentives for that volunteering, which we will all look at together at the end of our sitting. So that we can build a system that can encourage volunteering and make it more productive.
Okay, all right.
Yes, indeed. You have some questions?
Yeah.
Yes, can we please take them? Because we're running out of time now.
They sent you some
No, I don't have.
No,
you have them.
About restorative justice.
Yes.
That's part of the non-custodial measure. So all of the recommendations of the panel in relation to that will address.
Okay, as we begin to wind up this conversation, Mr. Francis, let's just see how we can strike a balance now between discipline, security, and the humane treatment of inmates. How do you think we can strike a balance?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the starting point will be adequate capacity building, so that personnel will be able to differentiate between maintaining principled stand on how inmates under your care are to be treated. Your responsibility as the superintendent in charge of a section, in charge of a custodial center, in charge of workshop, or wherever you are placed. You should be able to identify when an inmate is going out of track, and then have the capacity, the training to rein him in. And in addition to that, I want to also encourage that the components of visitors, as spelled out in the Act, Section 21, is there boldly written, both the ex officio, the legislative oversight visitors, the custodial center visiting committee, and the voluntary visitors. They all have their different committees. They can take their responsibilities a notch higher by increasing the frequency of visit to these centers. They will be able to identify where gaps exist, so that they put in place what can address the issue of gaps in oversight, whether coming from the part of the officer in charge of the custodial center as a whole or the command officer. The issue of indiscipline has resonated in some flashes of inmates escaping from lawful custody and all of that. So if these gaps are closed, I think we'll be able to maintain some level of sanity.
Okay, Dr. Ajani, let me come to you now.
Wait. We have some comments. Let me quickly read them so that Dr. Ajani can respond to them because of time. This one is from Abdulkadri Adebayo Ozi Jemo from Okene. It says, the statement on challenges in Interior Ministry and Correctional Service. The Interior Ministry and Correctional Service face significant challenges, primarily due to non-implementation of policies and corruption. As a concerned citizen, I urge the executive to address these issues and ensure effective enforcement of relevant acts. Transparency, accountability are crucial for meaningful reform. Mr. Kolawole from Ilorin says, what happened at the Nigerian prison is nothing to write home about. I had an experience last year at Kefi prison. I went to visit an inmate. Both officers and powerful inmates do POS in prisons. When we send 10,000 only, 5,000 will be given to inmates. Prisoners sleep on floor, no mattress, except for special inmates. I say have contact of inmates and officers. Now, this one is from Asha William from Benue State. He says, good morning. Nigeria Correctional Service needs holistic rehabilitation and construction of more facilities to avoid congestion and to maintain good feeding culture. My regards to everyone in the studio. The last one says, this one is from Akeju Olagbaju from Abuja. He said, I agree with Dr. Ajani that the presiding judges, in particular the magistrates, should practice non-custodial measures. In Yobe State, we have some inmates remanded for the inability to pay as low as 5K, that's 5,000 naira, for offense as first-time offenders. I remember we had to send some money to the registrar to facilitate their release. You want to respond to some of these comments?
Virtually every comment that have been sent in were things that we saw. So this is the reality of our correctional centers. In terms of corruption, wrong practices by officers and men of the correctional service, the ministry is not taking it lightly at all. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, quite a number of officers were demoted, sacked from the service, because it has to go through a process. And once the case is established, then judgments are given based on the provisions of the extant law. It's a pity, but this is truth about our correctional centers. And the ministry is deliberately trying to get things done in the right way. Thank God for the current Controller General of the Correctional Service, who is up to his game and has started a lot of process in terms of attitudinal change for staff that are working in the centers. And of course, we all know who the Honorable Minister of Interior is. So transparency, accountability is something we cannot afford to overlook. So we are doing what needs to be done to change the attitude of staff. Also, the panel is putting down everything that we have seen, even while waiting for reports to be submitted. We have engaged the correctional service to make sure that those ills that we have seen are being taken care of. The welfare department is one that I know we dealt with extensively at this last third hearing with the correctional service.
Okay, Dr. Jani, just sorry, we just have to interject you there because of our time. We have another discussion there. We do hope that when the report is being submitted, and we'll have you again so that you can tell us the content of your report and your findings and your recommendations. Dr. Mandalin Ajani is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Interior, and Chairman, Independent Investigative Panel on Alleged Corruption, Abuse of Power, Torture, Cruel, Inhumane and Degrading Treatment. Thank you so much, Ma, for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Nigerians.
Okay, Dr. Uju Agoma, Secretary, Independent Investigative Panel on Alleged Corruption, Abuse, Power, Torture, Cruel, Inhumane, Degrading, and many more. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Also, I want to thank Dr. Ikechukwu Ezeugo, who is also a member of the Independent Investigative Panel on alleged corruption, abuse of power, and so many more. Thank you, Dr. Ugo, for coming again.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, our viewers and followers all over the world.
Will you join them when they come for the presentation of the report as well?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Francis Nobore, thank you so much. Former National Public Relations Officer, Nigeria Correctional Service. Thank you for joining us in this.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
All right. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll have the second conversation. Stay with us.
we can change the narrative about Nigeria. You know, when people talk about Nigeria, they talk negatively about it most of the times. So it's the role of the filmmakers to now bring that positive side of Nigeria for the world to understand that Nigerians are more than the negative information they used to get. And we can do that digitally, because in those days, you know, you have to communicate or go for lectures for people to understand where you're coming from. But now you have these platforms. Everything you have can go on these platforms. People will see globally. Look at Nigeria on Netflix. It's doing really very well. When Nigerian films premiere on Netflix, you find out that they're in the top 5 or top 10 in most of the European countries, Asian countries, and all other parts of the world. So this is one of the ways through which we can be able to export that, you know, or do that cultural exchange.
How much of being a Nigeria cultural ambassador are you? And we're all guilty of this. Most of us Nigerian filmmakers are guilty. So here we see a good number of us telling stories that are still Western culture dominated. From the naming of your characters, from the writing of your story, the characters are named English names. What happens to Yoruba names? What happens to Hausa names? What happens to Igbo names? What happens to Tiv names? What happens to our cultural epic names? Oh, they say, but they will not be able to pronounce it. Oh, leave that to them. Do we pronounce their own names? We have to be intentional about how we represent our culture, knowing now that the world is a global space and you don't need people's permission. Everything you do, directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally, you're putting the Nigerian story out there. I think we should begin to make conscious attempts at creating our own streaming platforms. So we thank God for giant streaming platforms like Prime Video. We thank God for giant streaming platforms like Netflix and the rest of them. But what happens if today or if tomorrow we come up with our own Nigerian Netflix?
You're welcome back from the break. And as Nigeria continues to navigate the complexities of a rapidly changing world, the need for effective training and development has never been more present.
Yeah, you're right, Juma. Has never been more present. Therefore, the Nigerian Institute of Training and Development Annual Trainers Conference is a premier platform for learning and development of professionals to come together to share knowledge and shape the future of training.
And this year's conference promises to be a highlight of the year, bringing together top experts, innovators, and practitioners to explore new ideas and strategies.
And beyond this, the sessions and keynotes, it's really about equipping individuals and organizations with the skills needed to stay ahead in a world that never stops changing.
Indeed,
that is
a world
dynamic.
Dynamic, yes. And it's, you know, equally about building a culture of continuous training, one that can drive productivity, competitiveness, and national development.
Well, to give us a deeper insight into what to expect from this year's Trainers Conference, we are now being joined in the studio by Mr. James Bulus. He's the president, Nigeria Institute of Training and Development, NITDA. Mr. Bulus, good to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. Good morning.
Okay, and we're also joined by Engineer Oliver Uchechukwu Eze, Vice Chairman, Local Organizing Committee, 32nd ATC Annual Trainers Conference. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you.
So,
all right. Okay, let's start with Mr. Bulus. Right?
Yeah, Mr. Bulus. Can you tell us what this conference is all about? And what do you aim to achieve with it?
Yes, thank you very much, Nigerians. This conference is called Annual Trainers Conference, ATC for short. It's the 32nd edition of its kind, with the topic, Learning Reimagined, aligning people, performance, and technology for national transformation. This is a consolidation of last year's conference, which was the 31st, with a topic, learning and development, thriving in the digital world. Given the world we have today, technology is the in thing. How do we achieve national transformation? We have to align people, transformation, to achieve the national transformation. And technology is at the center of it. So last year we looked at digital world. Of course, everything about digital is technology. So this year we are converging again at the 32nd annual conference to look deeper into how can we harness these very important aspects of national transformation, looking at people, looking at technology to get that performance that will lead to national transformation. Bearing in mind also the direction the federal government is going through the head of service, which emphasizes on every organization implementing the performance management system. So we see this as a foundation that will lead us to that. That's basically the reason why we're doing this.
Okay, it's a foundation that will lead us to the goal that we have set for the development of this country. Okay, let's bring in Engineer Oliver Eze. You are the Vice Chairman, Local Organizing Committee. How do you see the conference contributing to the development, of Nigeria's training and, development sector?
Okay, so the ATC, Annual Trainers Conference, will give every practitioner in this learning and development space to converge and, exchange ideas based on their experiences in the field. So naturally, when professionals in this space come together, they will, bring together their experiences over the years and identify areas that might require improvements. And so when we come together as experts in learning and development space, it gives us the opportunity to improve the services we render in the capacity development industry. Knowing that we are all currently in the knowledge economy, like my president said, the federal government currently is emphasizing performance management. You cannot improve performance if you lack the capability. And so learning and development professionals tries to develop the capacity of every practitioner in every field, including you in NTA. If we come into NTA and administer our trainings, your capacity will be enhanced, your performance will be enhanced, and you will contribute to national productivity, to national transformation. So the ATC gives us the opportunity to come together and discuss ways to improve how we develop the capacity of every worker, every participant, every beneficiary of our services.
Okay, we're waiting for you actually to come to NTA so that you can help us to develop and improve on our skills and our ability. But in what areas do you think requires some, touches for improvement?
Okay, so for every organization, I would like to start by saying that before now, employers of labor emphasize intelligence quotients, right? But now, as it is, research has shown that emotional quotient, EQ, is actually more important. So to answer your question very specifically, every worker everywhere requires to improve their soft skills. People need to be able to collaborate. People need to be able to develop requisite skills that will enable them to work as a team. People need to increase their level of innovativeness, their creativity. That will enable them to contribute significantly to their offices, to their organizations. You could be technically sound, like I'm an engineer. No matter how sound I am as an engineer, if I cannot work in team, if I cannot collaborate with others, if I cannot work with the people in the finance department, the people in the HR department, people from other backgrounds, my productivity will be limited. And so the areas that I think every worker everywhere, irrespective of your field, irrespective of your specialization, requires to improve is their soft skills. So we in the learning and development space, whenever we have the opportunity to train people, somehow, directly or indirectly, we try to bring in that dimension, knowing how significant it is, how important it is to contribute to people's level of performance, to people's productivity. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Bulus, let's talk about, you know, the future of training and development, you know, evolving in Nigeria, because we have a generation that their hand is constantly on the phone. You know, technology is at the tip of our fingers these days. So how are you encouraging the younger generation to join in, you know, advancing technology for Nigeria's development? And, you know, maybe out there they're doing so much outside this country, but back home is as if they're held back. So how can they have access to this technology in order to bring it into developmental space?
Thank you very much. Let me align your question to the topic of our discourse this year, Learning Reimagined. This Learning Reimagined is focusing on some dimensions. One of it is personal learning. In the aspect of personal learning, irrespective of age, especially the young people, we are looking at a situation where we can harness their talent to be relevant in what we do. And of course, the second point there is talking about digital literacy. That is exactly where we're talking about now. They are so engrossed with their phones that as if their life depends on that. Mm-hmm. So we are seeing situations where some educators now, learning and development practitioners, are coaching these young ones. Rather than just wasting their times on their phones, why can't they use the same phones to get value out of it? I saw somebody recently telling someone, "Are you on TikTok?" She said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, come." He now showed her a program within TikTok that she makes some money. So we have a group of experts in our field, like the chairman of our learning and development, Mr. Aderele Onikosi. He has created most of our topics of discourse this year in the Institute are centered towards AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, and how these young people can leverage on those technologies, to make good of their lives. So we have it as a program. It's part of our training calendar for the year, and we have so spread it out there to some extent. Some organizations are keen into it. We also have, as part of our general program, youth empowerment, which talks about innovation and entrepreneurship. At that level, we also are trying to see how we can develop these young people to leverage on the knowledge they have on the technology to make good of their lives by being good entrepreneurs. So we ultimately are looking forward to having a performance-driven economy, cutting across all aspects of the different divides, the young people, the workers, the private sector, and everybody. So that's the effort.
And the mamas and daddies
because I was going to say that, because she emphasized on the youth, but don't leave out the elderly one. Mean, the older ones who are not even ICT
compliant.
So how do you, realign them?
Yes. Like I said, we were deliberate in planning our annual calendar for this year, shifting away from the traditional training topics that we used to have. 80% of our topics for this year in our learning calendar is based on technology. You understand? So, and who are our target audience? It cut across all the divide. The elderly people, the young people, the working class, even the retirees. Mm. As part of our expected participants for this year, we categorize them in different categories. We have members, they have a certain fee they are paying. We have non-members, we have retirees, we have students. That is to say, we are all encompassing.
You also have civil servants? Workers?
Well, civil servants fall under
Do they have to pay to be there?
Yeah, sure, they have to pay to be there.
Come on.
They have to pay to be there. Civil servants have money, so they have to pay to be there. Yeah, I know they have money, not that I think. So we have a lot of packages that takes care of the elderly, the young people, and the civil servants and the private sector.
Okay. All right, let's come back to Mr. Eze now. Let's look at the future of training and development. How do you think it's evolving in Nigeria, and what do you think, what role do you think technology is playing in this era?
Well, just like every other sector, just like every other aspect of our life, technology have come to stay, and there is no going back. And so learning and development is not left out. Like my president said, that is why the Institute intentionally, integrated learning and technology into our learning and development calendar for this year.
Okay.
And I know that going forward, that's going to be the practice. Because today, I traveled last year. I was out of the country, and a certain organization called me that they have training. You know, I normally train their directors and senior staff. It's a government parastatal. So while we were talking, I told them I'm not around. They said, oh, but I can deliver it from there. I said, yes, I can, if you people are okay with it. And they said, why not? They have the facilities. The parastatal have a standard training facility. And I delivered my training to their directors from Netherlands. That is just an example of how much technology has come into the learning and development space. And like I said, there is no going back. It can only get better. We can only become more acquainted with these norms through trainings. So when I just said whether civil servants are left out or whether the older demography is left out, nobody should be left out. We all have to keep developing our skills, our tech skills, so that we will not be caught unawares. I tell people that if you don't develop your tech skills, one day you will wake up and discover that you are irrelevant, even to yourself. And nobody would like to find him or herself in that situation. So learning and development has integrated and is still integrating with technology.
Okay.
You deliver lectures, you deliver trainings, whether tech trainings, whether soft skill trainings, all classes of trainings using digital facilities in one way or the other.
Okay, Mr. James Bulus, how can this, in your thoughts, this conference, themes and discussions inform policy decisions related to training and development?
Yeah, we are very mindful of our target audience. Our target audience, the entirety of Nigeria, cutting across professions, both in the public and the private sector. We are also mindful of policy makers to also be part of this. We invited high net worth individuals, both within government and private sector, to come and see what we are doing. And the reason is that their training and learning and development units or departments of the organization should be a composite part of what we are doing, so that going forward, they can garner support from their leaders, because they have been part of what we are doing, and then they also will give them the necessary support. For instance, I give you an example. The head of service is one of our special guests, and there are so many other directors generals and then managing directors of public operations that we have invited to come and see how can they help their organization. We're talking about national transformation. They are the drivers of the economy. So come and see how we can align people, performance, and technology to achieve that national transformation. And when we do that, certainly we'll get it right. So we have all the required people that we felt are necessary to be part of this. We have some heads of service from different states that are coming. And looking at that level, you see that even the states are not left behind. So if the head of service is here with his permanent secretaries and directors, it means that the knowledge and whatever expectation we have will be cascaded down the ladder.
Yeah, we'll be expecting the outcome of the conference.
Very sure.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So James Bulus,
yes,
President.
Wind up.
Yes.
Let me just find out from Mr. Eze now some of the challenges you think are likely to come up while implementing, these effective training programs. What are some of the challenges that you think?
I would respond like a typical Nigerian. Whenever you ask Nigerians challenges in anything, the first responses will always be funding. I say that with all sense of humility, because it's time that the government recognize the place of learning, the place of capacity development, and then be intentional about funding it. A lot of times in especially government agencies, people think that trainings are welfare programs. No, they are very critical to the performance, to productivity of any agency. So we have to allocate more funds. We have to prioritize training. We have to realize that capacity development is a factor we cannot toy with if truly we want performance.
Engineer Oliver Uchechukwueze, Vice Chairman, Local Organizing Committee, 32nd ATC Annual Trainers Conference. Thank you so much I wish you all the best at the conference.
Thank you.
James Bulus, President, Nigerian Institute of Training and Development, NITAD. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you so much for your time. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I am Ademola. You do have a lovely day.